And House Republicans have delivered articles of impeachment to the Senate, and now House GOP leaders have laid out their new strategy to address President Biden's supplemental military aid request. Our Washington correspondent Luis Martinez has more.
Steve, as I was about to mention, a historic day in Congress. For the 22nd time in U.S. history, articles of impeachment have been delivered to the Senate floor. This time, 2 articles of impeachment against Secretary of Homeland Security Alejandro Mayorkas. Now, the next step is that senators will be sworn in as jurors on Wednesday, and Senator Patty Murray, the Democrat from Washington, will preside over impeachment proceedings. Now, it is expected that Democrats will immediately move to dismiss the trial. Let's listen to what Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell had to say about this strategy.
It would be beneath the Senate's dignity to shrug off our clear responsibility and fail to give the charges we'll hear today the thorough consideration they deserve.
Now, there's only 3 Republicans and 3 Democrats who have already voiced that they are non-committal on voting for moving to table the impeachment trial. Now, if we move to the House of Representatives, Speaker Mike Johnson today called himself a wartime speaker. He also said he was unconcerned of efforts to oust him, and that we're in the middle of a civilizational struggle for which his foreign aid supplemental package plan is the best path forward. Let's listen to what Chairman of the Freedom Caucus, Bob Good, had to say about Speaker Johnson's new plan.
Speaker just announced that border would be not germane to the bills, so we're not going to allow border security to be part of the package. That's a big problem.
So the details of the new plan proposed by Speaker Johnson are still not public, but he has already mentioned that he plans on presenting 4 separate bills, one for Israel, one for Taiwan, one for Ukraine, and a 4th one highlighting Republican priorities. But as we have heard, Congressman Bob Good already rejects this proposal since it does not prioritize border security. Also, earlier today, we heard from Congressman Tom Massey, who expressed he was open to supporting Marjorie Taylor Greene, the Republican from Georgia, her motion that she submitted 3 weeks ago to oust Speaker Johnson. Let's listen to what Congressman Tom Massey had to say this morning.
Because the motion is going to get called, okay? Does anybody doubt that? The motion will get called, and then he's going to lose more votes than Kevin McCarthy.
Now, Democrats would also need a simple majority in the House of Representatives to table any motion to oust Speaker Johnson. So Democrats could save Speaker Johnson's job. But according to Congressman Tom Massey, the ball is on the Speaker's court, and it will be depending on his decisions moving forward with supplemental aid to Ukraine and whether he prioritizes border security or not that will determine the future of his speakership. Back to you, Steve.
Certainly no shortage of activity there at the Capitol. NTD's Luis Martinez reporting live from Capitol Hill. Thank you, Luis. And President Biden's campaign is laser focused on the largest battleground state, Pennsylvania. He's there again this time to contrast his tax policy with former President Trump's. NTD's White House correspondent Iris Tao has more from Scranton.
President Biden launching his 3-day campaign swing here in the battleground state of Pennsylvania with a visit to his childhood hometown in Scranton.
Where we come from matters.
Touting his working class roots, President Biden argues that he's a candidate for the little guy, while Trump is for the wealthy.
He looks at the economy from Mar-a-Lago, where he and his rich friends embrace the failed trickle-down policies. Scranton values or Mar-a-Lago values. These are the competing visions for our economy.
Specifically, Biden's vowing to make wealthy Americans pay more in taxes, and through that, contrast his tax policy with Trump's.
His failure starts with his $2 trillion tax cut that overwhelmingly benefited the wealthiest and biggest corporations.
But Trump has said his tax cuts for both corporations and individuals contributed to the economic growth in 2018 and 2019. And Trump also accused Biden of trying to raise taxes for average Americans when campaigning here in Pennsylvania just last weekend.
You like the fact that I got you the largest tax cut in the history of our country? And they're going to raise your taxes by 4 times. 4 times. Think of that.
Meanwhile, President Biden has insisted that he would not raise taxes for any Americans making less than $400,000. And next up, Biden will be campaigning in Pittsburgh on Wednesday and in Philadelphia on Thursday. Also highlight the importance of this battleground state, which Biden's campaign says plays a key role to Biden's re-election bid. Reporting from Scranton, Pennsylvania, Iris Tao, NTD News.
Jury selection in former President Trump's New York criminal trial has officially entered day 2. Trump today once again sitting in a Manhattan courtroom as attorneys work to select jurors out of hundreds of potential candidates. The process of lining up 12 jurors and 6 alternates could take days, even up to 2 weeks. So far, 6 jurors have been seated, but more than half of the candidates had already been dismissed as of Monday. Many of them said they could not be impartial in a trial involving the former president. All potential jurors are asked a litany of questions, including where they get their news and whether they've been to a Trump rally before. Their social media posts are also under scrutiny. Trump is accused of falsifying business records to conceal payments to an adult film actress before the 2016 election. He's denied any wrongdoing and pleaded not guilty to all charges. In the Supreme Court today, hearing arguments from a January 6th defendant, Joseph Fisher's case could potentially reduce charges for hundreds of January 6 defendants, including that of former President Trump. Here's what Fisher's lawyer argued.
Until the January 6 prosecutions, Section 1512C2, the otherwise provision, had never been used to prosecute anything other than evidence tampering. And that was for good reason. This court has said that otherwise, when used in a criminal statute, means to do similar conduct in a different way. The government would have you ignore all that or disregard all that and instead convert C2 from a catch-all provision into a dragnet.
The Supreme Court's decision could also impact Trump because he was charged with the same criminal offense. The alleged crime in question, violating a 2002 federal law that prohibits people from obstructing an official proceeding. If proven, it could add up to 20 years to someone's prison sentence. Prosecutors say the charge should apply because the plain meaning of the word obstruct an official proceeding should cover the Capitol breach. Critics counter that the law was intended to prevent evidence tampering before a trial or investigation. The Supreme Court will consider whether the interpretation of the law by prosecutors can be used against the defendants and whether the convictions already secured will stick. A new congressional report finding that China is awarding tax incentives and grants to companies that produce fentanyl. NTD's Jack Bradley brings us an update.
A new report today says the Chinese regime is awarding companies that produce the chemicals that create some of the deadliest narcotics in the world. The report comes today at the House Select Committee on the Chinese Communist Party. An investigation by the committee found the Chinese regime has been giving grants and awards to companies that traffic fentanyl materials and other synthetic narcotics since 2018. All of these drugs have no known legal use worldwide and kill tens of thousands of Americans every year.
This has got to stop. It's got to stop. It's got to stop now. They're not cooperating with our law enforcement. They're not taking down websites and web postings that clearly are selling fentanyl from China, and they're subsidizing it through these tax rebates.
You just saw those pictures of victims, and we really have to stop that. China is not just infiltrating this United States, but at the same time, they're creating all these drugs to kill.
The investigation found that nearly all of the world's fentanyl precursors come from China. Those chemicals are sold to and trafficked by Mexican drug cartels into America, mostly through the ports of entry in California. In many cases, people taking the drug don't know that it's fentanyl because it's made to look like prescription painkillers.
My sister and brother passed away from fentanyl poisoning. My sister passed in 2019 and my brother passed away in 2021. My baby siblings. It wasn't expecting that it was going to be fentanyl. From my understanding, that they thought it was Percocets.
It's not an overdose. When you ask for a specific thing and someone gives you absolute poison. It's not an overdose. It's a poisoning. It's a drug-induced homicide. And that's exactly what happened to my child.
Panelists recommend using economic sanctions along with other forceful measures to stop the Chinese regime from incentivizing companies from producing fentanyl. It remains to be seen how Congress will act now that this report has come to light. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Jack Bradley, NTD News.
Thank you for watching the Capitol Report. If you want to see our full broadcast, check us out at epochtv.com.